Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Under Eagle Mountain Making Podcast. Hello, my name's Laura and I'm coming to you from a very cold and very rainy north of England. It is so cold given that it is the 14th of June today. I have got double layers of wool on. I've got a sleeveless vest. This is the Fury vest and it's knitted up from a kit by a company called Hot Butter Yarns. I bought it as a kit from Yarndale, which is a small yarn festival held in Skipton in September each year, and it's a sort of pink and dark brown or black sleeveless vest, quite short, cropped. It's nice, I really like it. And then over the top I'm wearing my wider jumper, which was in an autumn issue of Liner magazine a few years ago. It's got these really big cables up the front and this lovely kind of short, like sailor collar type thing. It's very warm and cosy. It's knitted up in one strand of DK wool and a strand of silk mohair. It's not too warm, hence me needing the other layer underneath at the moment, despite the fact that I also have a thermal vest on underneath both of those things. The gauge is quite open and obviously it's all open at the front, so this bit was quite cold, which is why I've got the 2 layers on. And in fact I've just come back from taking the kids to school and it also had a shawl on, which is one of my finished objects that I'll show in a minute. So I'm wearing woolly socks as well. These are, oh look, I've got 2 pairs of socks on. You can see I've got a pair underneath, but look, thinning, I need to do some mending. These were the first socks I ever knitted. They were using the Tin Can Knits Rye pattern, but the DK weight one. I think I've shown them before. They are knitted, it's a River Knits wool. It was called Giant Squirrel, the colourway. And I think they still do the colourway, I've said before, but they changed their dyes and it's not as nice, and I just love these. And I've got them on because they go so nicely, I don't know if you can see, with this fabric. I'd made a dress in it, I think, last time. It's called Maine, the linen, and it's from Merchant and Mills, but it was a dead stock, so they don't have it anymore. It was like on sale. But I had enough to make the dress and some trousers, and I think I've got enough to make a little top, so I can go full on matchy pyjama type outfit with these trousers, which I'm really pleased about. The trousers are my first finished object. They're a second pair of bob pants. I'll try and put in a photo or a video so you can see them, because you can't really see trousers. You know, if I stood up you'd just see bits of them, so I'll try and put a better image in. I cut them out last week and sewed them together this week. I'm quite pleased with them on the whole. They didn't go as smoothly as the first pair, and I think that's because I made the first pair out of cotton, which has got a nice structure to it. I find linen a bit trickier. I find it shifts a bit when you're cutting it out and it stretches a tiny bit, so I had to go more slowly and more carefully. And despite the fact that I'd said I didn't really like the pocket construction on the bob pants, I don't know, other people might say, well, of course that's just how pockets are done, but it's not the way I learnt to do pockets. For this, they have you sew in like one half of the pocket bag onto the front trouser leg, and then they have you sew in the pocket bag, like the other pocket bag, to the first pocket bag, and then they have you sew in the back trouser leg along the outside seam, catching in the edge of the pocket bag. And to me it just seems really fiddly. Like, the 2 ways I've done pocket bags before are you sew the front of the pocket bag to the front of the trouser or skirt, and then you sew the back bit to the back of the trouser or skirt, and then you just sew down the outside seam, go around the pocket and carry on down. And as long as you get it in the right place with your notches and everything, that has always worked fine. And the other way I've done it is similar to that, but then you catch the top of the pocket bag into the waist seam, which means that they kind of don't flap around as much. So I'd said to myself, and I think to you last time, oh, I didn't like doing the pocket like that, so I'll do it my own way this time. I'll do it one of the other ways. which I forgot. So I was like halfway through and I was like, oh, I don't like doing it this way. And actually I think possibly because the linen moved around a bit or whatever, it just didn't go quite as smoothly. So I don't know, maybe the linen's a bit stiffer as well. It kind of sits funny on my hips slightly. I don't know, just slightly, but I'm thinking as the linen softens, as it's worn and washed, that might sort itself out. Fingers crossed that is true. But I will wear it anyway because I love them. I love the fabric. It's so lovely. Yeah, so that's my first finished object. My second finished object, well, it was kind of two really. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that not last week, the week before, or maybe last week, I can't remember, I did some experimenting with bundle dyeing. It's not something I've done before. I've not done it on cotton and on fabric, and I hadn't done it on yarn, but I'd seen some. I found a new podcast here on YouTube. The lady, I can't remember her name, I'm really sorry, but her like YouTube name and her Instagram name is Thread and Yarn, and like me, although much better than me, she knits and she sews and she naturally dyes. So it was like perfect. I really, really enjoyed looking at her videos. And one of the things she'd done recently was bundle dye sock yarn. She's got a sock pattern, her own sock pattern coming out, and she's dyeing up like sock sets for people to buy, and some of the wool is bundle dyed. And she did this tiny little short on YouTube of how she did it, and I thought, oh well, I'm just gonna copy it. I mean, she just showed it, there was no words, but it looked pretty straightforward. So I collected up like bits and pieces. I had some flowers in the freezer, and I had loads of onion skins, red and brown. I had some woad seeds. I had something. Oh, I used a tea bag, sprinkled on a tea bag, and I have some madder powder, like powdered extract, which I bought because I want to try and get some red fabric, and I'd used up all the madder that I'd grown, so I won't be able to harvest that for a couple of years probably. So I bought some madder extract. On the whole, I don't like using extract as much. I do use it for indigo, although last year I grew some woad and I used that to dye some yarn and some fabric blue, and that worked really well. So I'm going to try and plant some so that I've always got a little supply and get blue that way. It's not that I'm kind of snobby about it, you know, I don't have a problem with people using extracts. It's just that it's not really what I enjoy. I really enjoy like using onion skins or going and like snipping leaves off something. Oh, sorry if you can hear that. Our washing machine like plays a tune when it's finished. So it's just, if you can hear that pinging, that's telling me that the washing has finished. I hope you can hear it, because otherwise I just look weird. Anyway, maybe I'll just cut all this out. Right. Yeah, I just like, you know, snipping off leaves or picking flowers or, you know, growing them and using that whole dye stuff to get colours. I find it much more exciting. I know that if you're using extracts, it's still naturally dyeing. They just sort of processed flowers or processed plant material. But I kind of feel I could just be using anything, you know. You get this bag of powder, you don't, I mean, you do know that it's ground madder or ground, you know, bark of a different tree or whatever. You do if you get it from a trusted place. But there doesn't seem to be as much magic in it as if you take a bunch of leaves and you cook them up a bit and then you soak your wool or your fabric in it and you get like an amazing colour. It just, yeah, I find the process much more exciting and more enjoyable, and just, yeah, like a form of magic, like a witchy potion, you know. So, but anyway, after all of that, I had got some madder extract, so I did sprinkle a tiny bit of that on as well. And actually I'm glad, because it was that sort of injection of pink that that Maddie provided that really made the difference. So I did 2 different skeins. I did them separately, so I did one and I did the other. I'll put a picture up. This is the first one, hopefully, and this is the second one. So you can see the first one was a lot darker. I put the same amount of material in both, more or less. I didn't weigh it out, but you know, a comparable amount. The difference was that I steamed the first one for longer, and it transferred a lot more colour to the wool, but it also transferred a lot more colour to the cotton that the wool was wrapped in. And so I'd purposefully steamed the second one for less because I wanted some of the white on the cotton fabric still showing in the first one. I mean, I'll show you, I've got the fabrics to show you. They were like a really beautiful added bonus because I got the wool, but the fabrics are gorgeous. But the first one is completely covered in all different colours, and they're just kind of starting to merge together. I'm not too much, but I wouldn't want it to be any more. And so in the second one, I wanted to keep a bit of the brightness, a bit of the whiteness of the fabric behind the colours. So I steamed it for less, but obviously that meant there was less colour on the wool. So this skein here, which I'll just... This is the paler one, because I've already knitted up the darker one, and it's here into this. So it's worked out quite well. I don't know if the colours are going to show up too well. It is a really dark and rainy day here, but you can see from that, hopefully, again I'll put in a picture. There's like pinks and browns and yellows, and there is like a really limey green, which I'm really pleased with, which I think is the red onion skin on the fabric. There's a definite green. I'll come back and talk about the pattern in a minute. So this is the fabric. This is the fabric from the darker bundle dye, and you can see there's loads of, there's like darker greens, and then there's that sort of lighter limey green. It's so pretty. I'm so pleased with it. I'm going to have to think of something really nice to make with it. I'm not entirely sure what. I think maybe cushion covers, like, rather than cutting it up and... Oh, look at that bit. You see that? I think that was an onion skin. It's like put on a really sort of lovely texture. So here is the other one, and you can see it's, well, I hope you can see that it's a lot brighter. And you can see that little spatch of blue here, that was a woad seed, and that is like my favourite bit. I love it. I think it's so pretty. So yeah, I'm really pleased with those. I think maybe if I just make a couple of cushion covers with that fabric on the front and a plain fabric on the back, maybe for our bed, that would be really nice, or maybe one in here, I don't know, but just to like show it off, make the most of it rather than cut it up and have it all in bits and pieces. So yeah, so this is a kerchief. It's called The Age of Brass and Steam. Orange flower knits, orange flower yarn, orange blossom. No, orange flower yarn. I'm sure it is. On my Instagram, I put all the information on there. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and it's just a really simple, you know, the stockinette sections or stocking stitch sections with these sort of garter and eyelet sections, and just increased. You start here and you just increase on either end with yarn overs. I did it in like 2.5 days. So I started it on a Friday night and I finished it on the Sunday morning. Last weekend my husband was away, and I thought, right, I'm just gonna catch up with some sleep. I'd been on a big reading kick, so I was like, I'll go to bed when the kids go to bed at 8:30, and I'll like read for an hour, and then I'll go to sleep, and I'll be really well rested because I have to get up in the morning with the kids. No, I didn't. I cast this on the Friday night, and I stayed up till like midnight, and then I did the same on Saturday, and I sort of did breakfast knitting on the Saturday and the Sunday with the kids, and it just flew off the needles. My main work in progress at the minute, although it's very slow progress, is the frost sweater, which I've talked about a couple of times, and I have made some progress, so I will show you in a minute. And it's just not that enjoyable. Like, it's a really beautiful pattern, and I think if I'd knitted it up in like a fingering weight wool, it would be more enjoyable. I think the mohair, it's just that it's really slow because you have these sort of mild intarsia sections at either end, and then it's a single strand mohair, and it's just slippy. Like, I'm doing it on wooden needles, but even still it's just slippy, but not in a good way, not in like you can knit quickly type way. It just feels really slow going. I've looked in my book, I casted it on the 10th of May, so it's the 14th of June, so I've been doing it a month, and I've got 2 sleeves and like that much of the body, and like I think ordinarily I'd be nearly finished by now, so it's just a bit, anyway, maybe it's just because I'm horrid and it's not for me, and like my motivation is low, I don't know. But this, I cast it on and I was just knitting and knitting and knitting, and I was thinking, oh, I love this, and like the joy of knitting, and just the obsessive, like compulsiveness of it. I just kept going and going, and it was a really nice, it was just a really nice feeling to think, no, you do love knitting, you haven't fallen out in love with it, it's just that you're not that keen on that mohair. So yeah, it was great. It was a real like little boost, and I love it, and it's so cold. I've worn it several times today, this week already, like 3 or 4 times. It kind of looks nice with these bob pants, and it looked quite nice. I had the other ones on earlier in the week, which I showed last week. They were like a really bright sort of grassy green and white gingham, and the sort of limey grassy green in the wool kind of picked that up really nicely. And I did at one point have it on with my Leith cardigan, which I've not got. That's a finished object. Oh, I might go and get that in a minute. Like my first wear of that, and it looked a bit jazzy, if I'm honest, like green and white gingham trousers and like my colourful cardi, and then this on top, and I thought, oh, never mind. But I was quite happy, and then my daughter came in and said, oh, you look so amazing, you look so bright, you look like a sweet or an ice cream or something, which, you know, I think she meant in a good way. Right, I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to go and get that cardigan. I can't believe I forgot. Hello, I'm back. Sorry about that. So here it is. Oh, it's all crinkled because I've just taken it out of the bedding box. Like, there's a blanket box at the end of my bed, which was my great-grandma's, and has found its way to me. And actually, talking to my daughter, she said to me, can I have this when you die? I said, oh my goodness, I'm hoping that's going to be a long way away. She said, I know, but it's, you know, been passed through women in our family, and I'd really hate for it to go to somebody else. So can I have it? And I was like, yeah, okay. And then she said, can I have all the jumpers in it as well, please? Okay. So here it is. That's one side. And that's the other side. So this, it never shows up that colour that well. There you go. That's kind of, it's much more orangey. That's the coreopsis flower. And then this pale pinky colour here is birch bark. This is the onion skin, the gold. This red is my madder root, more of the onion skin. This is a different birch bark, that's kind of peachier. And then on the back, this is the madder tops, the dried madder tops from the plant. I don't know if it's showing up very well. And this is the eucalyptus. On the whole, I'm really pleased with it. It's the first thing I've knitted with yarn that I've dyed, and it was a really nice yarn. It's quite a special yarn. I've talked about it in previous episodes, so I won't go into it. And it's a nice, like, the pattern's a really nice pattern, and I really wanted a colour blocked garment made with all these different wools. There are a few things that make it not great though. One is this is the first time I've done double knitting, and you can see it is not excellent. It's very bumpy along the edge. I think part of that's me and part of that is the yarn. I know a poor workman blames his tools, but like you can see, I don't know if you can show this section. Sorry, it's a bit faffy. Can you see kind of here? It looks textured almost. In fact, it might do better if I show you the inside. Can you see? It's not quite. This bit looks a bit thinner here. And there are sections in the yarn which are spun much more tightly, and then there are sections that are spun much more loosely, which I kind of like because it gives it a bit more of a hand spun feel. So look, you can see there's, I don't know if it's showing up well or if it's, I'm just whittering on. You can see where it looks paler here, that's like a much thicker section, and then there are much tighter sections. And it's mill spun, although it's spun in small batches, but it sort of gives a hand spun feel to it, which I quite like because it was like hand knitted and hand dyed, and it makes it special. But it does mean that you get like variations in the edges, and I'm sure some of that's my rubbish knitting as well, but it's a bit lumpy and bumpy down the edge, which is not perfect. And the other thing is, and this is partly my fault, is that I did not swatch each separate skein of yarn, which I should have done. I swatched with this because I knew I was going to use less of it, so I swatched in that, and then I swatched with the sleeve yarn because this is actually a slightly different yarn. The main body yarn was 165 metres per 100 grams, and that was 180 metres per 100 grams. And I'd talked about maybe holding a second yarn with it, but I didn't in the end because knitting up, I used a bigger needle to knit up the sleeves. Is that right? No, I knitted the sleeves slightly tighter, I think, because I did it on a small circumference needle, and so the gauge worked out the same. But I didn't swatch with the others, and as it turned out, they have not knitted it all up at the same rate. This eucalyptus dyed one has actually knitted up much smaller, which is a bit weird, and I didn't really notice it at the time. But if I hold like the bits where it joins the collar together, and then I hold, you can see it's shorter by about a centimetre. So that top one is shorter than this bottom one. It's got the same number of stitches, and actually what I did, I mean, of course, like the back was knitted in one piece, so it has got the same number of stitches, but it's also got the same number of stitches at the shoulders with the front pieces. So it's just come out smaller. It's a bit narrower and it's a bit shorter. So when you put it on, if you just put it on and leave it, the front's a bit like this, and then if you kind of jiggle it, so like when I blocked it so it was straight, but then the back is a bit like that. So it doesn't look perfect. It definitely looks handmade and a bit wonky, and I'm kind of a bit sad about it. But the only way I can fix it is take off all the ribbon, take off the button, like I sewed the button band on, so I'd still have this button band, but I'd have to unsew it or unpick it, and then I'd have to take off all the ribbon. I'd have to pull out the sleeves, and the sleeves would just have to be ripped out and then re-knitted because they're picked up from the shoulder seams, and I'd have to undo the shoulder seams, and I'd have to re-knit the back. So the only things that I would have would be the two front pieces and the button band. I'd have to knit the whole thing again from scratch, and I just haven't got it in me to do that. So I think it's just going to be a lesson learned, and when I wear it, somebody might think, that looks a bit wonky, that doesn't look great, and I'm going to think, I don't care, because it's really special. So yeah, you live and learn, and you know, I guess if I wanted a perfect cardigan, I'd buy one from the shops. Anyway, right, so moving on to works in progress. I talked about my Russell Frost. This is, if you haven't been here before, this is a jumper designed by a lady called Emily Foden, who has a company called Viola Yarns. She's a yarn dyer, and quite a few years ago she brought out a book called Knits About Winter, inspired by the area that, I don't think it's where she's from, I think she moved to a place in Canada which is very cold and lots of snow, and it inspired a number of different knitting patterns, and one of them is a sweater called Frost, and it comes in 2 lengths. There's a shorter length and a longer length. The longer one is like a tunic, and it's knitting mostly in 1 strand of silk mohair, but on the edges, can you see? She does this sort of marlisle technique, which I think is a technique, or a phrase at least, coined by a lady called Anna Maltz, and it's basically like intarsia. Well, I guess the lisle comes from fair isle, but in this case, I'm waffling, I'm so sorry. It's like intarsia panels on each end, and you actually hold 2 strands of silk mohair together there. Let me just see, I'll get it a bit closer so you can see the difference. So you hold a 2nd strand in a different colour, and you get these, like, she calls them decorative raglan seams, and they run from the neck all the way down, and then down the side of the body, and also on the underside of the arm. So these are the arm pieces, and it goes up to a high neck. Now, this is for my stepmom, who seemingly has really long arms. So the pattern said that the underarm measurement was 15.5 inches. Well, Di has, like, we measured hers, her underarm seam was 19 inches. So she's quite tall, but yeah, there was quite a bit of extra knitting involved, which was, you know, great. But anyway, I've tried the sort of one sleeve on her, and it kind of joined where it was meant to, under the arm and right place at the wrist, and, you know, here because it has a high neck. I'll try and put in a picture so that you can see what I'm going for. I'm knitting it up in Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair. The main colour is Dusty Olive, and the contrast colour for the intarsia is Fennel Seed. So that is 2 sleeves. That's about a month's worth of knitting. And then I don't know if I can show this without tangling all the... This is the thing, isn't it, mohair? It all grabs to each other. I've done about that much of the back panel, and it has this sort of nice detail. It doesn't really show up very well because the light's coming through it, but there you go. You can see it has a sort of slightly split hem with this little tab here, and then this section reduces, so eventually the lines will join. The 2 decorative stitch lines will join. So yeah, it's knitting pieces, so I'm really looking forward to seaming up a mohair sweater. It's a good job. It's a good job she's a nice person, because otherwise I'm not sure I could bring myself to finish it. So I've got about a month left to do that. Her birthday's not actually till mid-August. I've got 2 months, but we're away. As a family, we will be away in over her birthday, so I need to have it done by the end of July at the latest, so that I can get it to her before we go away. So yeah, so really I should not be knitting anything else, and I am trying to put in a solid 2 hours on that every day, but as I say, it's really slow going, so I'm sort of producing a lot less knitting in those 2 hours as I would normally if I were knitting something else. So really I shouldn't be knitting anything else, but I was getting a bit fed up, and I was getting a bit just like having the joy sucked out of me, which is why when I cast on that little scarf, it just kind of flew off the needles, and it was just, it really kind of kept me happy. So I've decided I am going to allow myself a little extra project, and if I've done my 2 hours on the frost, if I've got any extra knitting time, which sometimes I do, like for example if I'm going to my craft group, or if my husband was out late last night on with a work thing, and so I just like put on rubbish telly and just sat and knitted, and I knitted a swatch out of this yarn. So this is Cascade Yarns, and it's Ultra Prima. It is a DK cotton, and I think it's mer-sized. It doesn't say that on it, but I think that's why it's so shiny. Maybe it's not, I don't know. So 100 grams gives me 200 meters, a solid DK, and yeah, it's beautiful. It is more or less showing up. It's like a really citrusy, greeny yellow. The colour is, just say it somewhere, 3833. I think on the website it might have been called chartreuse, something like that. It's a really sort of zingy colour, and I've knitted up, I balled up a ball, wound up a ball, and I'm keeping it in this little bowl, which I'm going to show off because it was made for me by my husband. He has a lathe, and he's yeah, he's pretty good on it. I mean, he's not been doing it for very long, and he's made me a couple actually of these little balls, and they're just perfect. Like, they don't have, you know, if you see well, not even a commercially made, like a lot of yarn balls are handmade, and they're either ceramic or wood. And I've wanted one for a while because I prefer a ball to a cake, but they do have the tendency to roll round, and quite often I put them in little cotton bags, and I like hang them on the edge of my chair. It's got arms, my chair, and like it's a wooden chair, so it's got little arms, and that's really good. But sometimes if I don't have enough of those, or if I'm somewhere, like if I go and visit somebody else, they might not be with me, and so the balls just tangle up. But having them sat in a little bowl is perfect, and I don't need the cutouts or anything to thread the yarn through. It doesn't fall out. It's just perfect. So there you are. I'm a proud wife with a nice present. He's made me a few actually. I'm really pleased with them. Anyway, moving on. This is the swatch. I knitted it up last night, and then washed it and blocked it. It hasn't really changed much, but it doesn't bloom. Cotton does it in the same way that yarn does, but all the stitches have laid nice and flat. It's quite a nice fabric. I mean, it's a bit open. It's knit on 5mm needles, so it's going to be a bit open. I put on Instagram the other day that I wanted to knit a simple cotton top with this DK yarn, and what did people suggest? And I did get a few offers, so if you were one of those people that sent me ideas and links and stuff, thanks ever so much. And I've still not decided really. The one that I'm leaning toward, which is why I did the swatch on 5mm needles rather than 4mm needles, which is, you know, typically what you might knit a DK on, is the Capital V Vest by Rosa Pomar. I'll put a picture up. And I kind of put that in my favourites in Ravelry, like at the beginning of the year, and I was like, definitely want to knit that, definitely want to knit it, and I do. It's really nice. I know it's a very low V, and think maybe I'm a bit old for showing off so much chest. I don't have much in the way of bust, so it's not going to look disgraceful, and I can wear, you know, you can see him. Some of the pictures she wears it without anything underneath, and then in some she wears it with something underneath, which is fine. That's what I would do. So that's what I'm thinking, and that's knit on 5mm needles, which appeals because obviously it would knit up quite quickly, but I'm a little bit off on gauge. Quite often I'm off on gauge, and I'm off on stitch gauge, and I am here. I've got too many stitches. So it was 16.5 stitches per 4 inches, and I've got 18, so it's not like loads over, but a little bit. But then my row gauge goes the other way, so I need to have 26 rows for the 4 inches, and I've got fewer. I think I've got 24 or 25. So what do you do about that? This always happens to me. You need to go up 1 needle size to get the stitches right, and down a needle size to get the rows right. And typically I think generally you'd say go for the stitch count, because you can adjust the length, and it is knit from the top down. It's one of those where you start at the back and then pick up at the shoulders for the front and then join it in the round. So normally you'd go with your stitch gauge so it was the right circumference, and then you'd just knit until you were happy. But of course it's got this very low V, so if your row gauge is off, that might not work out quite right. The thing is, I don't really want to go up a needle size. I don't want to go up to, say, a 5.5, I don't think, because then I think the fabric will be too open. Like, even with my hand behind it, you can see, again, because it's cotton as well, it doesn't fill in the gaps. Her sample is knit with one of her wools, which is a sport weight yarn, the name of which escapes me, but she holds it double with a mohair. I don't really want to add a mohair. This is a DK weight yarn, so in theory it should be sort of similar to a sport weight plus a mohair, like a lace weight. I knitted a Tolster in a linen sport weight and a mohair, and I have been wearing it a lot because, you know, it is not very warm. But if it is warm over the summer, and we are going to France, so if it is warm, I don't think I could wear a mohair top. And because of the shape of this top, I don't know, maybe I could wear it over a dress, but it's a warm weather garment, so I don't know if I then want to add mohair into it. Whereas my Tolster t-shirt, you can wear t-shirts all year round, so the addition of mohair in that was fine. So I'm waffling, so I might just because the capital V has quite a wide positive ease range, it suggests between 2 and 10 inches. So I think if I knitted the size 2, that would give me like 4 or 5 inches, and then the next size up would give me 8 or 9, I think. I'm trying to remember. So I could just knit the bigger one, and then it would give me slightly less positive ease, but it'd still give me more than the size 2, so I might do that. Or I might knit up a second swatch with 4mm needles and have a look at some different patterns. There is a recently released pattern by Le Pull. Again, the name escapes me. It's just like a little V-neck sleeveless top. It's got like no ribbon or anything. It's got no finishing. It's quite nice around the neckline and the arm line, and then at the bottom it's got a ruffle, but you don't, it's almost like a sewn garment, because you don't just go into the ruffle, you kind of bind off all but 1 stitches, and then you pick up all the stitches, so it gives you like quite a solid line. So the ruffle really stands out. Now hers, she's a young, very beautiful young woman, and hers is very short, so it shows all of her midriff off. It's a cropped top. I would knit mine a bit longer, being a woman of a certain age who's had 4 children, but I do really like that. So that's in DK cotton, knit on a 4mm needle, so I could swatch for that and see. So that's that, but it's I bought this because I thought it would go nicely with my trousers, which I love, and I just want to wear every day. So yeah, that's that. And then future plans, other than the cotton t-shirt or vest, include sock knitting, because as I said, we're going away on holiday. We're going away for 3 weeks, which is not something we've ever done before, and except for the older two who we took when they were babes, we've never been abroad with all the kids before. So they're very excited, as you can imagine, and we're going for a good old stretch. So obviously the only packing or the only planning I have done so far is my knitting, and I'm gonna take socks. I think I showed you the bag. I made a little project bag last week, which is like my holiday sock knitting bag. I might also take, because I might get fed up of doing socks, I might also take my heirloom quilt cardie squares, because they're nice small bits to knit on. I won't get too, I'm really hoping it's going to be warm. It might be freezing. I might be desperate for a big woolly project, but hopefully not. So yeah, I've got 3 sock patterns printed off. I think where we're going, the internet's maybe not great, so I decided to print the patterns off so that I would have them. And I've got the tin can knits, which is a free pattern, so the same pattern that I did these in, but the fingering weight version, which is the pattern I used when I knitted my daughter those socks with the Wednesday's window that I showed a few weeks ago. So the fingering weight ones is a free pattern, and actually it's called the Rye pattern, and actually it has like a garter stitch panel down the front, but whenever I've used them I've just omitted that and I've just knitted. So you get a plain sock. So that's going to be the first pair. It might not be the first pair I knit, and I'm going to knit it in this, which is one of the sock wools that I dyed up last year. I think this was the July colourway. I did like a whole calendar of so if this is the first time you've watched me witter on here, last year I dyed up a skein of wool every month to represent, like in a colourway that represented that month to me. So this was July, and the colourway I called Mussel Shell, and it's logwood and indigo and some iron to make like a variegated yarn. So I think it'll come out a bit micro stripy, which in general actually is not my favourite. It has a lot of the purple has disappeared already. I'm thinking there might be more of it on the inside, even though, oh well, no, looking at it close up you can still see a bit of it. Logwood, again, it's an extract. I have it because my husband bought me some for Valentine's Day one year, which was very sweet of him, but generally it isn't something that I would have in, but it does make a nice purple, but it fades a lot, I think. And wittering. So this is what I will use for those Rye socks, because just a plain stocking knit sock, it will show off all the colour variation. I think the second one I'm gonna knit is Andrea Mowry pattern, and it's just the DRK Everyday sock, which is a toe-up sock, which I've not done before, but it struck me that that might be quite a good way to knit a sock, because sometimes, I guess once you get more experienced, you might know exactly how much yarn you're going to use to knit a sock, but quite often I think, well, I'd quite like a longer leg, but I don't want to get to like halfway through the foot on the second sock and run out of yarn. Now I've got quite small feet, so that's never happened. I'm always left maybe between, yeah, about 15 grams out of 100 grams skein. I usually use like sort of between 80 and 90 grams, say. But if you knit toe up, you could just keep going with the leg until you'd used half the yarn. Like you could just weigh it out, maybe right at the beginning, and have 2 balls, and you can just knit till it's all used up, and then you don't end up with those slightly annoying 10-gram bits of yarn. And actually my balls, now that I remember, are only 80-gram balls, because I wound off 20 grams of each skein and had them separate. I think I might do like stripy socks or stripy shawl or something with them. when I dyed them all up, they all looked so nice in a rainbow, and I knew that once I started knitting with them, I wouldn't get that all together again, and so I wound off some just so I could keep them as like a little intact treasure trove. But I'll have to use them at some point. So yeah, the second one, they were like a ribbed all the way up, so I thought they'd look kind of sporty. So I think I'm going to knit most of them in this, which I think was November, maybe October. I've got it all written down. I've got a photograph of it somewhere, but it's one of the autumn yarns. And then this, which was December. So they're both dyed with madder. This was like an exhaust from something else earlier in the year, or maybe some fabric. And then this was like the first bath. And this is both my homegrown madder. So it's not a true like tomatoey red, so if you could put it, well, mind you, my jumper's like a pinky red. It's like a brick red. I really like it. So I think I'll do the main body in that, and then right near the top, you know how you get in those white sports socks, you get like 2 rings at the top, like stripes, horizontal stripes at the top. I thought I might do that in those. Just before the top ribbon, like, and that would still give me enough, I think, to knit most of a pair of socks in the red, which I want to be able to do, but just, I thought that would look dead cute. So that's that pair. And then the last pair, I'm going to do a petite knit pattern, and they're called the ruffle socks, and they're quite cute. They're like, I don't know, they're like little girl socks, I suppose. So they're top down, and you cast on loads of stitches and decrease them quite rapidly, so you get like a ruffle, like, you know, like you fold them down. Little girl socks used to have like lace ruffly edges. I remember wearing them to school like that, but no lace, all knitted. And I thought they'd look quite nice with little shoes. Yeah, so I'm gonna knit those, and I'm gonna knit them in this. This was February, I think. It was moss colourway. It is the most beautiful colour, I think. It was dyed with onion skins and then over dyed in indigo, and it has created this really beautiful, rich kind of jewelly green colour, but it has got like a slight variation in it, so I think what knitters like to call tonal. So some darker bits and then some lighter bits, and some bits that are almost still like golden from the onion skin. And yeah, that's, I think, out of all the wool I dyed, that's my favourite. It's just a gorgeous colour. So yeah, that's my plans. Hopefully I'll have put up some pictures of those socks so that you can see. But that's it. Let me know what you're knitting or making. Have you got any sewing plans? As I said, at some point I'd like to make a top in this matching main linen, because I've got enough left. I haven't got loads. I could make a zero waist slip top from the Birgitta Helmersson book, or maybe like a little short sleeved tee, just like a little boxy tee, sort of cropped, but not cropped like I'd show any skin really, but just so it would meet the top of my trousers. So maybe if I lifted my arms up, you might see a tiny bit of skin, but I don't tend to go around like that. So that'd be quite nice, I think. And then at some point I'll do something with these lovely fabrics, but that's not on my immediate list, I don't think. I really need to concentrate on that frost and knit myself something as like a treat to say well done as I go along, but not let it take over. So yeah, I hope you're all right. It's still raining here. I hope it's nicer where you are. I hope that you don't have to wear several layers of wool in June. But actually, looking at a lot of people on Instagram, like, I think lots of people are having to do it. It's a bit miserable. But there we are. With that little bit of weather news, I shall sign off. Thanks ever so much. Thanks for watching. And if you like and subscribe, thank you as well. That makes a difference. And yeah, I hope to see you again soon. Bye.